Her grim task finally at an end, Tira raises to her feet, the determination which has been etched across her features up to this point, now succumbing to a look of hopelessness. Staring down in sadness at the cloying mud that covers her hands, a thick layer which obscures the bloody lines cut deep into the skin beneath it. It has taken time for her to hollow out and then to fill the fresh grave that she stands over. Far too much time, and now the cold dark night is upon her. But there was no other course of action available. Any others who might once have helped her already lie in matching graves that she herself helped to dig. Their bodies eroded and corrupted to nothing by the harsh chemicals which the invaders have transported here from the shores of their own lands. The menfolk, who've crossed the seas inside huge vessels of war, towering steel beasts, from which rivers of poison permeate out through the surrounding waters, vile effluent and acids, which have served to corrupt and destroy every aspect of her formerly happy and carefree existence, slowly claiming the lives of her loved ones until the last of those has passed this very evening, her mother, leaving her alone on these islands. As the numbing pain and confusion start to yield to a far darker emotion, she turns, intensely scanning the adjoining bay for any sign of activity. Her gaze coming to rest upon a dark shape, slowly plodding its way towards her, a weak cone of light probing forth from it, searching the surrounding water. Letting forth a deafening and anguished cry of rage out into the night, she sets off directly towards the approaching vessel. If she's to be the last of her kind, then her final act will be to end the lives of those who have wronged her, ensuring the last words they speak will be her name upon their lips. Thus far the evening has progressed like so many others for the handful of sentries aboard the picket boat, tedious and uneventful. So when the harsh scream echoes out across the waters from the nearby shore, they are at first immobilized in confusion. As they quickly recover, the boat crew begin to scan the smothering darkness that surrounds them, hunting for any possible sign of the German submarine they've been trained to fear and to guard against. Instead, they catch sight of a lone figure emerging from the darkness, inexplicably somehow walking across the water's surface towards them, arms raised up above the rest of its body. As the sailor manning the boat's searchlight brings the beam of the device to bear on the intruder, the few features he can discern prompt him to recoil in fear. The approaching figure's features are feminine, but also somehow animal-like at the same time. Her grimy body, half visible beneath the torn cloak that she wears. The vengeful alien cry they heard moments before comes again, at the same time as the trespasser's arms are thrust down towards them in a violent manner. Seconds later, a razor-thin column of water impacts into the side of the pinnace, the force of the blow sending those inside tumbling around. Barely have they recovered their senses when the maddening scream comes again, with a further blade of seawater impacting against the boat's exposed steam engine, where it slices through the thick metal housing, instantly resulting in a catastrophic eruption of heat and flame, which consumes the boat and all within it. But there's little time for Tira to linger and behold the destruction she's wrought. Her vengeance is only just beginning. The loss of the picket boat has not gone unnoticed by the crews of the warships it was protecting. As the fiery echo of its boiler explosion begins to die away, bells sound on the larger ships at anchor, several hundred meters away. Men bellow orders at one another, hauling weary comrades from their slumber, shoving them violently towards their action stations. On the bridges of the Royal Navy fleet, duty officers demand reports from those on watch, ordering their ships be brought to combat readiness. Within moments, powerful searchlights are probing out across the surface of the sheltered bay where they are moored, as bright flares are fired up into the night sky. And as further picket boats are launched to screen the vulnerable warships from torpedo attack, those aboard catch sight of an impossible vision. A solitary figure, crossing the confines of the loch, illuminated by the flames of the sinking vessel behind it, its arms slowly working back and forth, as if weaving some form of intricate garment before it. The boat surged forwards now, their crews loading rifles and pistols in readiness to apprehend the intruder, little knowing their fate has already been sealed. A deafening shriek, filled with a lifetime of pain and suffering, flies forth to meet them, along with a series of deadly water surges. One by one, the tiny wooden boats are either capsized or sliced in two by the sharp and angular torrents which impact against them. The bones of the men aboard breaking, their limbs severing, none surviving the irresistible force of the ancient magics they have fallen prey to. As the last of the approaching boats succumbs to her fury, its departure is marked by a ragged volley, which erupts forth from the larger vessels. Sporadic rifle fire sounds up and down the decks of the battleships, as crew members there hurriedly fire, then reload their weapons. Sidestepping some of the incoming projectiles, she summons watery barriers to divert others, all the time continuing her relentless journey on towards the ships. As the rate of gunfire from the vessels increases, she casts her arms aloft once more and screams, sending a savage blast of water careening towards the nearest ship, where it impacts against the thick metal hull with a dull clang, twisting and buckling some of the heavy armour plating, but failing to penetrate. She hesitates, believing for a second that all is now lost, that she will be unable to avenge her kin in the face of mankind's evil. But then she feels the presence of hundreds of metal objects, all of which lie suspended just beneath the surface of the waters around her. Additional defences, which those who control the ships have deployed to dissuade their enemies from attack. Sidestepping more rifle fire, she whispers the words of her forebears beneath her breath, reaching out with all her might. A large metallic object, shaped similar to that of a piece of fruit, slowly rises from the depths, coming to rest on the water's surface before her. Then it's gone, travelling across the water towards the warships, propelled by another scream of deep fury, impacting hard against the steel hull of one of the craft there, where it violently explodes, in turn setting off further explosions deep within the ship's hull. All around the fleet there is now nothing but chaos, with some crew screaming for help and guidance from their officers, and others more jumping into the sea. Unable to raise anchor or to manoeuvre, the commanders of each vessel order renewed fire from their crews, heavy machine guns opening up, stitching murderous volleys across the waters of the loch towards the attacker, whilst the panicked crews of the ship's smaller 3-inch guns hurry across the deck to ready their weapons. Midway through her next attempt to raise one of the sea mines that lie in the waters around her, Tira is forced to contend with this increased rate of gunfire. Raising a wall of water to divert and to block the projectiles, in doing so, she allows the next explosive to slip back under the water. Flagging under the constant effort to defend herself, she can only manage a further scream of hate, the resultant energy surge lancing across the loch, where it impacts against another of the ships, shattering the limbs of several helpless sailors. Tears rolling down her features, she tries to proceed forwards, only to be stopped in her tracks as more gunfire ranges in on her. This was not the end her family deserved. The menfolk must pay more for the pain they have inflicted upon her. The panicked phone calls being received from the battleships make little sense to the shore commander, who is hurried to his office. The fleet is under attack, one ship badly damaged, slowly sinking as multiple internal detonations ravage its hull. And whatever is responsible defiantly maintains its assault on the fleet, from directly in the centre of the loch. There's only one option available, in order to prevent further casualty, removing any hesitation he may have in giving the order. Moments later, the signal to detonate the sea mines spread around the centre of the loch is given. It takes no time at all for the electronic pulse to travel out into the bottom of the bay, where it immediately triggers the devices. 1 second, Tira stands tall and vengeful, staring her enemies down from the water's surface. The next, she is utterly consumed by heat and flame amidst the detonations that she stands amongst, her body fully destroyed by the force of mankind's fury. They will not find any trace of her in the aftermath, only the graves of her kin, when they tentatively extend their search to her island, ensuring that the memory of her people and the wrongs that were done to them will live on forever in the secret writings of those who killed them. Her legacy achieved, Her death, given purpose,